हरि कन्ना।
So far, we have seen what is research, types of research, and then we have looked into the important components of empirical research also. So now we will explore the steps in doing research or research process step. So steps, that's what we will be looking into now. So here are the steps of research process with examples. Now I will give you the example for each step so that you will have a clear cut understanding. Let's begin with the first step of any research process is identify the research problem. So the first step is to identify a research problem or question that you want to investigate. For example, you may be interested in understanding why people choose to buy certain brands of smartphones, why people uh, choose to buy certain brand of car, why people choose to buy certain brand of clothes. So these are some of the research problem. Once you have identified the research problem and written the problem statement, now it's time to go for reviewing the literature. So next you need to review the existing literature on the research problem to see what has already been studied and what gaps in knowledge exist. So that's what is called reviewing the literature. We will be looking for the existing research that have been done so far. Okay, this can be called as using the literature, somebody's literature for our research. It can also be called as a secondary research. So, for example, you may search for articles and studies on consumer behavior and smartphone purchases, because we are going with one example. That's our problem statement. I'm writing down, so I'll put it here so that it will be much easier for us. Yeah, so let me put it here. It would be it makes much sense of so research research process. So as we have discussed, step one is identify the research research problem. So for us, the research problem for us is we want to understand why people choose to buy certain brands of smartphones. Simple. Okay, this is step one. So now step two, review the literature. Review the literature. So next, in this, for the same problem statement, reviewing the literature is nothing but what we will do. We will go and we'll search for articles and studies on consumer behavior and smartphone purchases. Okay. Next, Once reviewing the literature is done, then we will move to the third step, which is called develop a research question or hypothesis. This is very important, very important. So based on the literature review, you can develop a specific research question or hypothesis that you want to test. Okay, so once your reviewing the literature is done, now we need to develop. This is step 3. We need to develop a research question and hypothesis. So it's nothing but no, we have to develop a specific research question or hypothesis that we want to test it. So in this example, in our case, the smartphone case, so our research question could be, what factors influence consumers to buy a particular brand of smartphone? That is our research question. So research question is, what factors influence consumers to buy a particular brand of smartphone? It could be Apple, but that's okay. So that's our research question, and you can convert that into hypothesis, saying these are the parameters making these customers to buy particular brand of smartphone. This is what is our hypothesis. Now that is called null hypothesis, so which can be either proven right or proven wrong. Okay, that's our step 3. Now once you have written your research question and hypothesis to test, now it's time to determine the research design and research methodology. So once you have a research question or hypothesis, you need to determine the best research design and methodology to answer it. So that's what the next step. So step 4 for us is determine the research design and methodology. So in our smartphone example, so we have our research question here: what factors influence consumers to buy a particular brand of smartphone? So now we need to determine the research design and methodology. So for this, I want to conduct a survey or an experiment to gather the data. That's what I'm gonna do here. So I want to conduct a survey or experiment to gather data. That's it. So now once you have decided which research design you have designed, how you want to do, and methodology, in methodology which sampling method you want to use. Once you have decided with all these things, for example, I have gone with the random sampling, that's okay, still that's fine. So once you have designed the research design and then research methodology, then we will go for the next step, that is collecting the data. So next we need to collect data using our chosen methodology. Okay, that's what is our next step. So step 5, collect data. So as I told you, we have decided the research design and the research methodology. So research methodology is nothing but deciding which sampling method you want to go with. For example, sampling method for me would be stratified Stratified sampling seems good here. So, and then once you have decided the sampling method, and then you have designed the whole research where you want to do the data collection, which whether you want to do it based on the geography, based on the some other factors. Once you have decided all these factors, so now you will go there and you start collecting the data. So in this case, we will conduct a survey. We will conduct a survey of smartphone users. That's what my point of interest. Smartphone users, that's what my point of interest here. Users to gather information about their buying habits and preferences. Okay, so now once data has been collected, what next? That's obviously analyzing data. There comes into the picture analytics, analysts and data scientists. Okay, so once you have collected data, you need to analyze it using statistical methods to test your hypothesis or answer your research questions. That's what is analyzing. Okay, so next step, step 6 is to analyze data. So once our data has been collected, now we need analysts and data scientists and statisticians to come into the picture, and you and this should start analyzing the data using statistical methods to test our hypothesis and to answer our research questions that we have posed on top. And maybe in which step? It's in yeah, third step. Okay, now here in this case, in our smartphone case, I may use regression analysis to identify the factors that most strongly predict smartphone brand preference. Okay, so once analyzing the data is done, now it's time to move on to the next step. That's step, and in this step, this is step 7. Here we will draw conclusions and make recommendations. We will draw conclusions and make recommendations based on our data analysis. So we can draw conclusions and make recommendations about the research problem. That's what is going to happen here. Or inferences, you can put it in another way. Inferences, step 7, draw conclusions and make recommendations. So in this example, we may conclude that the price and brand reputation. In this example, after all analysis of the data that we have collected using the stratified sampling, stratified sampling method, we may conclude that price and brand reputation are two most important factors in smartphone brand preference. And once this is done, now we have to recommend. Because our conclusion has been drawn. Now we need to recommend this. So we have to recommend that companies companies focus on these factors in their marketing efforts. That's it. Finally, it's converted into the business benefit. So at the end of the day, everything, whether it's a statistics or a research, everything converts into the business. So that's what is our step 7. Once the recommendation has gone into the respective business entity, now its final step is to communicate the findings, nothing else. So finally, we need to communicate your research findings to others through a research report. That's it. Presentation or other means. This is very important step. Most of the academics uh, av- avoid this one, so they don't mention this. They in their research steps, they don't include this. They exclude this step, but this is very important step. Step 8. So communicate findings. So, as I said, we need to communicate our research findings to others through a research report, presentation, or other means. For example, we may write a report summarizing our research methods that we have used, and then results about our research, and final conclusions, and present it to our colleagues colleagues or submit it for publication in a relevant academic journal. So why are we doing this? So that the same report can be used by somebody else as a secondary research. So that's it. That is our research process. These are the basic steps of research process, and they may vary depending on the research question, methodology, and other factors. It's important to carefully plan and execute each step for the process to ensure that the research is valid, reliable, and meaningful.